Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host, and this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. Oh, well, this time we're still in Spooktober. The spooky month of October. And I've got a few spooky, supernatural, occultish type books to share with you today. Mostly, but not all, but mostly from the Bronze Age. And we're starting with the Chamber of Chills. Correction, Chamber of Darkness. Number 6 from 1970. And we got this. That doesn't look kind of spooky. Looks like the mouth of a monster, but it's not. It's an arcade. And I'm not sure who did this cover. This is 1970. Chamber of Darkness. Now this is when, of course, shortly after the Comics Code loosened up, and everybody started producing some form of horror comics. A lot of them doing reprint stuff, but a lot of them also had new material. And this Chamber of Darkness, this is one that it featured both. So it was primarily, at least initially, new stuff. Like here we have here. This is one that they were tended to start off with the artist actually telling the story as if they were horror hosts themselves. In this case, it's Sal Buscema. It says a change of mind, and this is kind of funny. This tale of this mad scientist. He's only got one arm, and he's got his goofy assistant, who's at least he seems to think the guy is incompetent, and he's always mistreating him and stuff. And here's the thing he has devised. Looks like some kind of giant robot, and he's going to say, "Tonight's the night, and this is going to be great. I'm going to be totally powerful and immortal." And he gives this whole backstory, and he beats the crap out of the guy, but you don't do when you're dependent entirely on him for your assistance here. And he's concocted this gizmo, and he's going to transfer his mind into that powerful and immortal robot. But it takes his, I'll just call him Igor, to do it for him. And some great artwork and not his typical style either for Sal Buscema, but it's done very, very well. And then he I like this because I wasn't going to go into details, because he transforms him into puts his mind inside a worm. Oh, that's funny. And here's then a reprint from Jack Kirby, Black Magic. I'm not Jack Kirby, I mean Steve Ditko, and this is undoubtedly from the 50s, late 50s. It's magical stuff. It looks like it might have been some stuff that eventually led up to Doctor Strange. And then our cover story. See, this is a very rough, as you can see, it's falling apart. This is a very rough copy, but it's quite readable. Dick Ayer's art here, and this guy here. And arcade, some good horrifying fun. Then we have Creatures on the Loose. Now, of course, Creatures on the Loose dealt with all kinds of monsters, and it had a lot of sword and sorcery fantasy type. And this is involving a monster and the maiden. Of course, designed to look. The cover is intended to look like one of the monsters. Monster titles. Well, it is a monster title, but it was featured great interior art by Gray Marlhill. So this stuff, and this is Gulliver Jones, Warrior of Mars. Now, in case you're not familiar, there was a novel of I've forgotten that actual title, but it was Gulliver of Mars, and this is, by many people, think that this is the novel that inspired Edgar Rice Burroughs to write his better known John Carter of Mars series, and had some weird aliens and stuff. But then it followed up with had two other of more monsterish and horror-ish stories. This is who's this? I know this artist, but I can't place it. It's not. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Could be early Don Heck, and then followed For Whom the Drum Beats, a Steve Ditko story. Then here from 73, I think that's what it was. Yes, 1973, Chilling Adventures in Sorcery, number 3, Red Circle Comics Group, which is Archie Comics. And this was the follow-up to, the first two issues was Sabrina's Chilling Adventures in Sorcery, in which the whole thing was drawn in the standard Archie stylization with Sabrina as the horror host, but they were ordinary horror stories. Now, this entire thing was written and drawn. And I think I may have done an in-depth episode on this particular book. I'm not positive, but the whole thing was written and drawn by Gray Morrow, who we just saw doing that Gulliver Jones story. So it's really some really nice, and it's well written as well as well drawn stuff. And that is a great cover. That should be a poster. Then we have from 1974, Supernatural Thrillers, number 7, featuring The Living Mummy. This is by Steve Gerber and Val Mayarik, who later did some work together on Man-Thing, and what's his name? And Howard the Duck. Yeah, and this is the I think this is the first. Yeah, this is the first issue, I think, of the Living Mummy. I think, well, of the regular stuff. They may have had some in the Monsters on the Loose or magazine, but oh yeah, some really nice stuff. I haven't read this in ages. I might have to. It has the flashback and the origins of the man who became the living mummy. Back in ancient Egyptian times, he was some kind of African prince. But it's really cool. And I don't think there was a backup story, was there? Yeah, there was a backup story. He came from nowhere. Science fiction horror-ish type story there. Then we go to 1975, The Crypt of Shadows, number 20, 1975, and that's a great cover. A monster walks among us. How many times have they used that tagline? And what nameless evil lurks in the Crypt of Shadows? Take it easy, Janet. There's no need to worry, but and this is also some reprint, and and that's a great looking monster right there. This is The Martian Who Stole a City, and this starts off with a Jack Kirby giant monster reprint story, and this is one I'm less familiar with. Most of the others have all kinds of reprints, but I don't think this one was reprinted as much, and even in the reprint volumes that I've got, I don't think this was in here. And that's interesting. Of course, I love those monster stories. And then we have The Screaming Beasts. And this is obviously from the 50s. I don't know who this are. This was originally from Tales to Astound You, number 1. So this goes way back. And this is an early George Tuska work in that. And then we have a Steve Ditko story. Yeah, so many ads in there. Yeah, Steve Ditko. That's kind of cool. Kind of fun. And here we have from Atlas Comics. This was 75 or 76. What was it? 75. The Grim Ghost, number 1. I wasn't sure if I had this. And this is a great cover. This would also make a great poster. And this cover was and the interior art is done by Ernie Colon, of course, who had just a few years before this was primarily doing Casper and stuff like that at Harvey. but he's a good art style. And this might think, well, this is kind of superhero-ish, well, only in an odd kind of a way, because it is about a ghost, and then it has his backstory when he was a highwayman, and died and sent to hell or something like that. I can't remember the whole thing. And eventually he comes, where is it? There he is. And when he comes face to face with the devil himself. And I think that's a great rendition of The Devil there by Ernie Colon. That's really good. Then 1977, and unfortunately this has no cover to it, is Howard the Duck, number 14. And why am I putting Howard the Duck in with some spooky and horror stuff? Because he is a duck possessed. He's possessed by the demonic entity in the son of Satan. Yes, he has been transformed into and he is possessed by some great Gene Colan art. And it was great, of course. In Gene Colan, again, Steve Garvey, but it was Kurt Gerber. This is Gene Colan. Gene Colan was great in everything that he did. But I especially like his. Of course, he was best in Tomb of Dracula. He was doing Tomb of Dracula and Howard the Duck and those all together. So this is some really great, nice looking stuff here, and too many ads. Yeah, there we go. But Hellstrom, who is the son of Satan. His demonic powers were transferred to Howard, and it was taking over Howard, and he had to stop him, and he gained his powers back because he was able to keep the evil soul in check. Yeah, and it no cover, but it's perfectly readable. It's fine. Then we jump to 1986. This is Ace Comics, The Cosmic Book, number 1. This featured Alex Toth, Pat Boyette, I don't know, Himes, and Wally Wood, with a great wrap. Oh, it's not a wraparound. It just has front and back covers or cover paintings. Of course, this is for the next issue, I think. Isn't specifically a horror book. It's tales of gods and kings, of space and things. It's just a cosmic book. It's got sword and sorcery, science fiction, and horror, and with a good flavor of horror. And this is because Pat Boyette. This was later in his career, and he was doing some really nice stuff for alternative and more indie independent publishers, smaller publishers. And he was one of the part of Wandering Star Press, and he did the lead sci-fi story. Had something there about UFOs. I don't know who that was, and it has an end story of another one, a great one by Pat Boyette. And so where was but it started, or was it? I missed it. Yeah, right at the beginning. Just a little thing by Wally Wood. Remember, this was just a few years after Wally Wood had died. And but it was some fully painted pages here. It was just a little 2-pagers with a twist ending. Then we jump to 2014. Dr. Spectre from Dynamite. So Dr. Spectre, Master of the Occult. They got the rights to the old Gold Key characters, and I was reading stuff, and this is pretty decent. But I just have one thing to say. I don't like it as Dr. Spectre. If it had been a completely original character, because it's changed so much, it might as well not even have been Dr. Spectre. But instead of this Dr. Spectre we know and love, he's some kind of like, oh, I can't remember the guy's name now, like the TV psychic, And it starts with that. I don't remember much. It's always some really, really nice artwork. And I do think it is well written. I just don't like it as Dr. Spectre, because it is so far afield of Dr. Spectre. And it even gets crossover. It's Magnus Robot Fighter and Man of the Atom. But this is more of Woman of the Atom, I guess. And it even has, I think, a bit of Turok in there. I think that's who that is. That is some nice artwork, and it is well written. And of course, this is just volume 1. I never got any of the others. And it was a regular regular comic book. But they, and this is a graphic album of 3 or 4 issues. And I don't think it was not nearly as good as Don Glut's original Dr. Spectre, but it was made some decent reading. It's just not good for Dr. Spectre. That's all I have to say. And of course, that's Dr. I don't like the cover design at all. But anyway, that is what I had to share with you this time around, with some great spooky horror titles for Spooktober. Oh, so please like, share, and subscribe. Do leave your comments down below. And remember, comics are art.